Steelers Nation, welcome back to the channel for another episode of the Steeler Culture Podcast, where we break down Pittsburgh Steelers football. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 week from today, Steelers football is back, man. Yes, it's preseason. View it how you want.
It's preseason, but it's football.
It's football, and we've all been dying and hungry and thirsty for football. So, in 1 week's time, we will get to see Steelers football live in action. And yes, it'll be mostly the rookies and the depth players and all the guys trying to make a name for themselves. But that's what makes it interesting and fun. Plus, a sneak peek at some of the rookies will be fun to watch, especially regarding the fact that most of the draft class this past season has been mostly towards the defense. You're talking Derrick Harmon, Jack Sawyer, Yahya Black, Dante Kent, Carson Bruner. I mean, they went very heavy on the depth of the defense, man, and adding some more ferociousness, a lot of power to that defense is very well advised. This year, man, this defense is looking very stacked, and I'd argue it's probably the most stacked Steelers defense that they've had since 2019, 2020, and those defenses were very good, very well rostered. They were very deep, and a lot of playmakers along that entire defense. And I get the same vibes with this year's defense, man. Now, on paper, it could look like it's one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. It's obviously the highest paid defense in the league and has been.
I mean, compared to last year's defense, and we know what the end result was. I mean, the whole squad, the whole team was just not on point. And so it was the Steelers' mission to, of course, bolster the defense, bolster the depth, and just get better overall with the defense. And that's what they did this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of last season where the defense got incredibly basic, some of the more core pieces, some of the more important players really didn't make a lot of plays, or maybe their stat lines didn't show for it.
And it was a mix of bad coaching and bad scheming by Teryl Austin, and I can only hope that with this year's squad that he has a better idea of how to utilize that talent. But also, you know, it was a part of the problem was some of the players. Cameron Sutton, Dante Jackson, the defensive line depth wasn't good. The edge depth was there toward the later end, but again, the coaching didn't utilize it properly.
No, I mean, plus you got to think, yeah, the defense did suffer from injuries, and obviously the offense itself didn't help. The offense hasn't really been holding up their end of the stick, their end of the bargain for the defense in 5 years, 6 years. It's been a while. The defense has really been the backbone of this team, and they had to make changes. Now, we were hoping coaching changes, and that's not the case. Teryl Austin will return as defensive coordinator. Mike Tomlin will still have a lot of his input, and most of the position coaches outside of the defensive backs coach and the linebacking coach.
Yeah.
That's the only change we saw. But from a roster aspect, I got to say from the defensive line, I think on paper it is improved. They had to make changes. Corner 110% is absolutely improved, bro. We haven't had a corner core this strong in a long time. Linebacker, the loss of Atlanta Roberts, I think will be felt, but you got to like the emergence and the potential breakout of Peyton Wilson.
But the return of Cole Holcomb at the same time. Now, I know he missed a pretty much year and a half of his NFL career due to a gruesome knee injury he sustained back in November 2023. But seeing how he has been in training camp and practice, and from what we heard, he's moving fluidly. He's looking healthy. He's looking physical out there still. And I remember when he was healthy, when he did play in his first year with the Steelers, he brought a level of intensity to the linebacker core. So I'm glad to see that Holcomb still has that within him, and I can only hope that he continues to show it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Cole Holcomb can do in a rotational role. Maybe he sees some more reps in passing downs, but I think he'll pretty much be that Atlanta Roberts sort of fill-in where he'll play early downs, he'll play obvious run situations, short yardage capabilities, because that's where he really shines, is that run defense area. That's one of his best traits as a linebacker. You also look at last year, the Steelers, along with the Minnesota Vikings, who are coached up and coordinated by Brian Flores, they tied with most turnovers with 33 overall last season. They were really coming away with a ton of turnovers. You could say that, yeah, there was some blown coverage here and there. The corners weren't exactly the best in terms of coverage, or you could say that the run defense wasn't always consistent. But one thing that the defense was very good at, and one thing they came away with constantly, were the turnovers. You know, we still have a lot of those playmakers going into this upcoming season. Let's start with the defensive line. Cam and Heyward At 35 years old last year, he came away with a career high in PBUs, or passes batted down. He came away with career high in that. 8 sacks. At 35 years old, he essentially found the fountain of youth.
And a first-team All-Pro recognition at 35 years old. I don't know how many defensive line can say that, but Cam Heyward can put his name in the hat right there.
Yeah, Cameron Heyward coming back, being, one of the captains on the defense, being one of the main leaders and one of the legends in the locker room. There's no reason to think he's going to have a collapse. There's no reason to think he's going to have a decline, bro. The guy seems to get better with age. He stayed healthy all last season, and coming in at 36 years old, I think he'll still have a great season. His impact will for sure still be there. Opposite of him, first-round pick Derrick Harmon. Last year, we had Larry Ogunjobi. He had his solid couple games, but we needed a replacement. And we got that replacement, that day one starter, that Cam Heyward-like guy, and Derrick Harmon. I get a great feeling about Harmon. I think he's going to have a great impact. He could have an immediate impact. I think he is going to be that next heir towards Heyward whenever Heyward retires. But for him to work opposite and learn under a guy like Heyward with Carl Dunbar as a defensive line coach, Derrick Harmon is paired with some of the best he could ask for to start his NFL career. But you watch how he plays, you look at his ferociousness, his bully mentality at the defensive line position, how quick he is off the snap, how fast he gets towards the ball carrier or the quarterback. He's shedding blocks. He's shedding these dudes, man. Once he figures out how to clean up the tackles and finish the sacks, Derrick Harmon, I think, is going to have a great career with the Steelers. I think he's going to be a top defender for this defense for years to come. But in his rookie year, to pair with Heyward, I think that's a terrific compliment for someone like Cam Heyward, and especially for someone like Derrick Harmon.
I think he's a young individual. He's a young, humble man who's only 21 years old, a 21-year-old rookie who's already, labeled as the starter opposite of Cameron Heyward. And we saw his tape. We saw the talent that he possessed at Oregon, his lone year, breakout year, incredible. It's what got him to be a first-round pick to begin with. And now he gets to showcase that with the Pittsburgh Steelers already. And from what we heard in training camp, the guy's balling out, constantly in the backfield, making play after play after play. It's what you want to hear from a first-round guy.
Yeah, batting passes down. He's got strong hands, quick feet. I get a great feeling about Derrick Harmon, man. Very, very good feelings towards Derrick Harmon. I'm getting good vibes there. Keanu Benton at nose tackle still. I think it's a disservice having him at nose tackle because I think he's more than that. I think he's eligible to play the 3-tech. I think that's where he should have been all along his first 2 seasons. But that doesn't mean he's going to be solely the nose tackle. I do think he'll move over to 3-tech in some formations, in some packages. Whenever Heyward needs a rest, you put in Benton and you still got Harmon on the field. Those are 2 young guys with great quarterback pressure. Those are 2 guys with great pass rush upside who can still clog the gaps at their positions. So I think Keanu Benton in the future could be looked at as a 3-tech, and I want to see more of that this season. I think we could utilize him more. He needs more reps. He needs more, down plays. He needs to be used in an area where he can really benefit himself and the Steelers. But him at the nose tackle still, he's going to have a role. He's coming to his 3rd year. The Steelers view him very highly, and I think he's someone that's going to make a jump at some point.
And that's his role for now, and that's not a bad thing when it comes to Keanu Benton. I mean, maybe down the road, whenever Heyward decides to hang it up, maybe that is the long-term vision and plan to use Benton and have Benton and Harmon as your outside defensive ends right there. That's a possibility down the road, but for now, he can play the nose tackle. And the past 2 years, he's done very well.
Very well.
He hasn't been perfect, and, some people honestly expected more out of Benton in his 2nd year, and I can understand that. But the guy, he knows how to get pressure up the middle or in the middle of the defensive line. The thing with him is I feel like he needs to learn how to finish his plays, finish his tackles, and finish sacking the quarterback. Once he gets that down to a T, once he figures that out, then I think we're all good to go as far as him at the nose tackle position.
Yeah, but I think him as a run defender and him getting pressure to the quarterback and getting inside that pocket and making it collapse, I think that's where his impact is really there. The stats don't show up, but I think with more playing time and him being used elsewhere on the defensive line, that will allow Benton to kind of sprout out. But I do think in year 3, he should be taking a jump here shortly. But I'm still very excited for Benton in his future, and I think he's going to have a bigger role down the line. Even if they want to move him to defensive end, guess what? They drafted Yahya Black in the 5th round. He could be the future nose tackle. He's not going to be the nose tackle this year, but he's going to be a great backup. He's going to be a great rotational piece where the Steelers are now seeing him as a defensive end. You want him to fill in for Loudermilk's role or Dean Lowry's role or guys like that. Black can do that. Yahya Black can very well do that with his size and his versatility. And he even got first-team reps as a defensive end, not a nose tackle, a defensive end. So that shows the versatility he has. That's where he's going to be this upcoming season. He's going to be kind of like that backup in the defensive line room where you can line him anywhere, where he's going to be the clogger. He's going to be the gap filler. He's going to be someone you come in on short yardage situations, obvious rundowns, and he's going to prevent the running back from going nowhere. He's going to close the lanes for him. He's going to close the lanes for the defense and allow all the linebackers and everyone in that defense to roam around and make plays behind the line of scrimmage.
And that's exactly what Black did at Iowa, and that's why the Steelers selected him in the 5th round. Because, again, the Ravens game wasn't a pretty watch when it came to the run defense. We know what they allowed. So the Steelers' mission heading to the offseason was to bolster the trenches, build the trenches up, and make it stronger, younger, bigger, and badder. And that's what they did with Harmon in the 1st round, and then going into day 3 with the 5th round selection they had and getting Yahya Black. And Black is a big dude that just knows how to play football in the trenches.
Yeah, this is an enormous nose tackle, and I think that's what his future role is going to be. I think he could be a nose tackle. He's not going to be a starter.
Not yet. He has the potential to be the starter, but he's a guy that at first could probably push his way to getting more reps, more playing time in certain rotations, and maybe even take some playing time away from certain other veterans that have been with this defensive line group for years now.
And that's why the Steelers drafted Yahya Black, because they needed fresh faces. They needed some young bodies. They needed some better production in that area where they can't just rely on the same depth every now and then or the past however many years, because that's what resulted in the Ravens playoff game, almost 300 rushing yards. That's why they grabbed a guy like Yahya Black in the 5th. And I think he could see a bigger role, maybe not this upcoming season, his rookie year, but, given the reps he's going to get and make the most out of them down the road in his later contract years, he could see a bigger role, maybe even as a starter. If they want to move Benton over to 3-tech in the future, guess what? Yahya Black can be inserted day 1 as that nose tackle when the time comes. But for this year, I think that's great depth. Now let's move on to the linebackers. Now, last year, we had Patrick Queen, we had Peyton Wilson his rookie year, Atlanta Roberts. There's not much of a difference except Roberts is out, and now we got Cole Holcomb, and we added Malik Harrison as well in free agency to be that special teams gunner to play those rundowns, right? They'll probably rotate as the 3 and 4, right? But even still, linebacking this year, very stacked. Yeah, we lost Roberts, which I think it sucks because he is such a great thumper in the run game. Very, very, very well, much of an impact guy in that area. Hopefully we can still have that with Holcomb and Harrison as the depth. But Patrick Queen coming to a 2nd year, he'll be the green dot. 2nd year in the system. I'm hoping he's going to have a much better season. Peyton Wilson, same thing with Derrick Harmon. I get great vibes, great feelings that he's going to be a future core piece for this defense. I did get a sense he's really about to break out. He's all about making plays and bettering himself and being a worker. He oozes confidence. He backs up the talk that he lets out in interviews, on the field, in camp. Peyton Wilson is going to be a great football player. As long as he stays healthy, which he did last year, and he's going to get a bigger role in 2025, I think the linebacker room is still very strong. It's one of the better linebacker rooms we've had in a while, and some confidence there. That's why they added Patrick Queen last year. That's why they drafted Peyton Wilson last year. Now in year 2, with some experience and some chemistry, I think they're just going to build on that, and they're going to be a stronger linebacking core, especially seeing how stacked defensive line is and how much more improved it is compared to last year, where last year we had Ogunjobi and Monty Adams and guys like that as the pieces. Now you see who we added in the draft. That's just going to allow the linebackers to roam around. We're going to have the guys to fill the gaps to stop the run. That's going to allow the linebackers to do what they have to do. They come in hand. The front 7 works hand in hand. They're going to better themselves. They're going to work together. I think it's going to make the run defense specifically that much stronger, which was the Steelers' main mission in the draft.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the ideal plan. I mean, it should be when it comes to specifically run defense right there. And I remember, I'm not reminiscing, but looking back at the linebackers we had previously before Patrick Queen was signed and before we signed or drafted Peyton Wilson, and before we signed Landon Roberts, before he went to Las Vegas and whatnot, the linebackers were poor, along with the same defensive line depth and whatnot, and it's just the same old every year where we tried experiment after experiment with the linebackers. You know who I'm talking about. I don't have to go down the list, nor do I want to, but it just wasn't really good. And then Khan made it his mission to bolster the linebacker room, and he started that in his first offseason with Landon Roberts and Cole Holcomb. And they both brought a level of impact until Holcomb unfortunately got hurt. Now he's coming back again, looking forward to see what he could bring, even as a rotational piece and a depth guy. And then, he paid big money for Patrick Queen, which I was very surprised to see because I didn't think that Queen was even on the radar. I didn't. Because when it comes to the Steelers in free agency, you never think that way. But Khan's like, nah, not so fast. This is my mission. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm glad he did. Queen didn't have the greatest year, but he didn't have the worst year. He had a very suitable, solid year, in my opinion. And I think that as he sticks around with the team, I think he will progress and get better with his Steeler career. I do believe that. And of course, Peyton Wilson is just a dog. He's just so good. He's so fast. He's so fluid. And he's so disciplined. And he craves greatness. He wants to be great. And he goes with his routine and being heavily disciplined on that and just doing what he needs to do to make himself a better person and a better football player, to keep his body conditioned in order for him to do what he needs to do on that football field. And what he does on that football field is some great stuff. And I look forward to see what he does in year 2, man.
I look forward to this entire front seven because, like I said, they go hand in hand. They work together. If the defensive line fails, the linebackers are just they're not getting any help. They can't get into the lanes. They can't make the plays. That allows the tackles or the guards or whoever to get to the second level and allow runners like Derrick Henry, like whoever, to go up the seam and go up the field and destroy the defense. Well, they're looking to fix that this season. That's what they did in the draft. That's what they did in the entire offseason. So I think those guys, the defensive line is going to help the linebackers. The linebackers are going to help the defensive linemen. I'm very excited about this front seven. But you can't say the defense is so stacked without looking at the corner core. It's been a long time since we had a corner core this good, this stacked, since we had a strong starting 3. Right? Last year, we had Joey Porter Jr., who still very good in coverage, strong in coverage. Can't ask for one of the better cover guys we've had in a while.
Just a flag magnet.
Flag magnet, yes. Then you had Dante Jackson, who couldn't tackle to save his life. So, yeah, he had however many picks.
5.
5 picks. He couldn't cover, and he couldn't tackle. We had Beanie Bishop, who unfortunately had his snaps reduced for a returning, unfortunate Cameron Sutton. He sucked. Corey Trice, he came away with a pick versus the Broncos. Then he got hurt, and he didn't come back till late last year, and they left him wandering alone against Jamar Chase in the last Bengals game. You had Darius Rush at one point. You had James Pierre.
They brought back James Pierre. Pierre couldn't make the Commanders roster.
Like our corner core last year, although it was improved from that year prior, it still wasn't good. Now this year, they've added 2 incredible future Hall of Fame minds that I don't think they're in their prime no more, but they're still very, very serviceable. And they're going to really better a lot of the corner core with how young it is, with JPJ learning from them, with Beanie Bishop, Corey Trice, even Dante Kent, right? Learning from all of them. You got JPJ, still your starting outside guy. He needs to clean up the penalties, but I think with Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey added and a new defensive backs coach, I think that's only going to better everything in that secondary. That's going to better JPJ. That's going to better Beanie Bishop, who is now second string slot guy, but could see time in dime packages. How could we leave out Brandon Eccles, who's been looking very strong in camp? He was very good with the Jets the past couple years. He's got that special teams ability. If Corey Trice can please for once stay healthy, he can play that dime backer role where he's got the build, he's got the coverage ability to work against anyone in the slot or especially against the tight ends. You want to have a tight end shadow, you got someone like him, but don't forget Deshaun Elliott can do the same thing. He's very good in coverage, but he's a much better box guy where he's so strong in the blitz against the run. He's a thumper at strong safety. He made play after play after play last year. He made so many plays. He was all over the field. Elliott's only going to work so well with how great now this corner core is. If it performs as advertised as what the Steelers have brought them in for, man, this secondary can be really deep. The only thing they're missing, obviously, is a free safety. Yes, we have Darius Slay. We have Jalen Ramsey. But bringing in Jalen Ramsey was at the cost of getting rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick because now we don't have someone to play the deep ball. We don't have someone of Minkah's importance. We have Juan Thornhill as the starting free safety. That's the only little spot there that's just kind of missing.
That's the weak link right there.
Now, could Juan Thornhill be serviceable? Could he start the whole year and be serviceable because of how stacked corner is and how well they could all work with each other? Sure. I don't want to roll it out. I definitely don't want to roll it out. But it's still not as advised. They should still add somebody. Who that is, who that could be,
or when that could be. It could happen after preseason. It could happen after the initial final cuts. Most likely that very well could be the case. I don't know. But as of now, Juan Thornhill is the only primary free safety. Now, they did sign former Raven and Jet Chuck Clark just about a week ago. He has experience as a free safety, but I think he's more of a strong safety type of safety right there, type of player. I think he's more of a strong safety kind of build. Though he can play free safety, I don't know if having Chuck Clark and Juan Thornhill is your ideal free safety position to ride the whole season.
No, I'd much rather them go out and grab a Jordan Whitehead who can do everything Chuck Clark can do, but I think better and especially younger. Bring him back to Pittsburgh, right? Or especially someone like Justin Simmons who's still out there. They're bringing in all these vets to make one last run, right, with Aaron Rodgers and everyone else. It kind of fits what they were trying to do. And I think Justin Simmons would be a great improvement at free safety. So that's an option. We don't know if they will do it. If they do it, I agree with what Rob said. It'll be after the final cuts. It'll be after preseason. But even still, even with that little spot there at free safety, kind of missing or being a bit of that black eye on that defense potentially, the defense is still incredibly stacked. The secondary is very, very good.
And not only is it very good, at least on paper, with the name value that they got, but the secondary is very physical. Yeah. And that's what you're going to want in a secondary. I mean, Deshaun Elliott showcased that last year. He was very physical, one of our better physical defenders within the secondary last year. So much so he got an extension. I'm glad he got an extension. The guy deserves to be here. He bleeds black and gold. He plays like a Pittsburgh Steelers safety. He deserves to be here. He's a great player. Jalen Ramsey, we know how physical the guy is. He's one of the probably the most physical cornerback within the past decade.
And with so much versatility to this defense, he can play outside. So knock on wood, Darius Slay, JPJ get hurt. Guess what? Shift over Jalen Ramsey outside. Beanie Bishop, you're now the starting slot corner. And there's no problems from anybody in that regard because Beanie Bishop can certainly play the slot. And this Steelers might be viewing him as their next Mike Hilton type player. But for now, Jalen Ramsey inserted as that slot guy, but can play outside. He can play safety. He's going to be that star role. He's going to play that star position that he did back at Florida State. I think that's tremendous for someone of Ramsey's stature, of what his characteristics are on the field, and especially at his age.
Mm-hmm.
You got Darius Slay, who's still very strong in coverage. He's always been a physical corner. JPJ, very strong in coverage. He can be physical. He's very much improved his tackling. In fact, coming out of camp, all these guys are looking good in coverage. All these guys are looking very good with the PBUs and the tackling.
And I like to think, specifically JPJ here, I like to think that physicality part coming out of training camp from JPJ is an influence from Jalen Ramsey.
Well, it's not just an influence from Jalen Ramsey. Do you know who his dad is?
Of course I know who his dad is. We all know who his dad is. And I'm not saying JPJ wasn't physical before. He was physical in Penn State, and he was physical in his first 2 years with the Steelers. But I felt like there was some more unseen potential out of that from JPJ. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like it was there, but there's more to it. There's some potential still there. Ramsey could potentially be getting that out of JPJ, and I hope that's the case.
I don't want to rule out Dante Kent potentially making the roster because, I mean, it's not that hard to beat out a guy like James Pierre, is it? Because Dante Kent can be the gunner on special teams. James Pierre's kind of like that backup primary outside guy. Well, maybe Dante Kent could be that if he shows more in coverage, if he shows more, especially on special teams. That's really going to be his biggest way of making the roster. That is if they want to keep 7 corners. Do they? They could.
Or there's a possibility of them keeping 6, but, just stacking up the practice squad with another corner or another couple corners.
Sure.
That's a big possibility.
It is. Again, we haven't had this stacked of a corner core, this stacked of a defense in a while. And, of course, we haven't even talked about edge yet because we got to save the best for last. When you think of the defense, when you think of the Steelers, who's their best player? you think of TJ Watt. He just signed an extension that's going to make him a Steeler for life. You got Alex Highsmith, who is a very good compliment, very good edge guy. Yeah, he might not have double-digit sacks every single season, but the pressure that he gets to the quarterback, how he collapses the pocket, how strong he is in the run defense, that is Alex Highsmith's impact right there. Him and Watt just bounce off each other. You got Nick Herbig, who I think could be a starter one day.
One day, he's a starter on any other football team. Let's be real. The guy is just that quick, that fluid, that good. Herbig is a hell of a football player. And just having him in rotations, I mean, like, that's just even scarier.
And then you add in 4th-round pick Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. People might not view the 4th edge piece as important, but look at last year when Nick Herbig and Alex Highsmith got hurt. At one point, we had Jeremiah Moon, who is mostly a special teams guy. We had him be the starting opposite guy of Watt against the Raiders, I think.
Yeah.
It was so bad. The injuries got to us so much, we had to trade for Preston Smith at the trade deadline. That is why they drafted Jack Sawyer, because if Nick Herbig, Highsmith, Watt, knock on wood, they get hurt or whatever, you got Sawyer to come in and fulfill that role, that next man up. Or guess what? You want Watt, Highsmith to be as fresh as possible. You want them each to take a rest. You got Herbig and Sawyer to still play that and still bring some level of dominance to that edge area. I think that's tremendous. That's going to keep Watt and Highsmith fresh. That's going to still add a level of dominance and a level of edge to that position. That's why they added Sawyer. That's why Nick Herbig has been very important. The injuries we've suffered, the depth that was necessary. Just look at previous years when we had Nick Herbig in his rookie year with Marcus Golden. How strong was that? Very strong. Very good.
It was a very lethal edge group right there. It was a 4-headed monster right there. And now you have this current pairing. I mean, we know what Watt and Highsmith can do together. We know what Herbig can bring to the table. And we all know the potential that Jack Sawyer can bring to the table. And you have that 4-headed monster for at least the next 2 to 3 years, maybe even longer.
Maybe even longer.
Oh my God,
Nick Herbig has 2 years left in his rookie contract. He could stay. He could get an extension, a short extension at some point. Alex Highsmith still has a couple years. Watt just signed an extension to be a Steeler for life. Jack Sawyer is just getting his career started. Bro, that edge core is so deep, and it's here for the next couple years.
And it's locked down, man.
Now, yes, we talk about all these bodies. We talk about all these names and how stacked D-line is now and the fresh faces. Edge with Jack Sawyer added. Corner, all these fresh faces, and just how so many guys are going to have so many roles in a lot of areas, right? It still comes down to coaching, because we had some of these guys, a lot of these guys actually last year. We had a lot of these role players last year. And towards the tail end, it didn't amount to much. It didn't, because the defense was so basic. No one was moved around. Nobody was even thought to be tossed here, tossed there. There was no creativity to move guys like Watt or Highsmith around to keep the offenses guessing. There was no blitz at all. It was very low blitz rate for a lot of people, especially someone like Peyton Wilson or Patrick Queen. I think Patrick Queen had his lowest blitz rate of his entire career last year. The defense was basic. It was nothing but zone coverage, everybody staying stationary, and no blitzes or very minimal blitzes.
It was so bad to a point that Lamar Jackson had no problem doing what he did against the Steelers defense. And yes, Lamar Jackson's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, arguably top 3, maybe even number 1 in some people's eyes. But Lamar Jackson, if you look at his history going up against the Steelers, it hasn't been great before the past 2 games where the Ravens defeated the Steelers and the Steelers lost in very bad fashion.
Yeah, so much for the Steelers defense being Lamar's kryptonite. That wasn't so much last year, because the defense didn't do anything. The coaching didn't do anything to allow the guys to sprout out, to make plays, to get mismatches. There were no disguises. Like I said, very, very basic, which is why, in my opinion, Minka didn't have the season that we thought he was. Watt, he didn't have a sack in his last 4 games. You look at these guys and what they were to do on the defense. They weren't allowed to roam around. They weren't allowed to make plays because the coaching didn't open things up. They didn't get creative. They were just like, you know what? We got all these key players. We got all these core guys. they can do what they got to do. But they couldn't because they were so stuck on that defense. Now, what we're hearing out of camp is they're opening things up. There are some disguises. There are some blitz packages. They're moving Jalen Ramsey around everywhere. They're moving Watt and Highsmith to their opposite sides. They're even doing some 3 outside linebacker rushes where Watt can rush inside. Herbig can rush inside. Sawyer can rush inside. Same thing for Alex Highsmith. That's lethal. That is what we're looking for this year for the defense, is to open things up. Open the playbook. Move guys around. Allow them to create mismatches and make plays all over. Get some more blitzes going, especially with Queen and Wilson and the depth that we have at edge. We can add so much more to the defense with how many core players and how many pieces we have. The coaching has to step it up. And from what we're hearing at camp so far, hopefully that leads into regular season action. Because, yes, it's great to hear it once in camp, but to do it in an actual game is another thing.
Of course.
Because we hear they're experimenting at certain things in camp and never see the light of day in football action. So I'm hoping this, with the coaching changes and the disguises and all the schemes that they're trying to come up with how stacked the defense is, let's incorporate that into the actual game where we can allow this defense to do anything.
And it's no secret that the Steelers are going to once again rely on the defense. They've done it for a number of years. They've done it basically their entire, time, as long as they've existed.
Their
really.
entire
Super Bowls.
Yeah.
All of them, all 6. I mean, they've relied on the defense. They're going to continue to do it again. They've put a lot of money into it. They've put a lot of investment into it. It's time for the coaches to utilize the players properly. There's been time that Teryl, I'm talking about Teryl specifically, there's been time that he could have, and he hasn't. It's been stale. It's been bland. Guys have been stationary. There's no reason to do that this year. There is zero reason to do that. And a big part of the defense having to do what they need to do is, yes, coaching. Also have to utilize this talent. And the offense going to have to stay on the field for more than 5 minutes for the offense to be a little more consistent than previous years. Fingers crossed on that. And they put a lot of investment in that in the offense as well. With A-Rod and DK and the draft class and whatnot, the offensive line, of course, they put a lot of investment on the offense as well. So it's up for the offense to do what they need to do. For Arthur Smith to do what he needs to do as the OC of the offense. Some of these injuries is because the defense kept constantly getting on the field.
Yeah.
Consistently on the field. They would get off the field after holding their own, then the offense would go 3 and out in 3 minutes, and then the defense would have to get back on there. I mean, that's not enough recovery time for these guys to have to get back on there. And sometimes they would have to be on the field for 10 plus minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot going through a player's body. With the sport of football, it's just what it is.
But that's why they've added so much to this defense in regards to depth. That way, knock on wood, we do endure any of these injuries to some of the starters. Guess what? We got guys that can come in and fill in and play certain spots. And that is up to the coaching to put them in those spots and make the most out of them. It's up to the players for execution, absolutely. But as long as we put those guys in positions where they can succeed, and it keeps the offenses guessing and it creates mismatches and it doesn't allow the defense to be basic and as lazy as it was towards the end of last season, this defense can 110% be the best defense in the league. On paper, I think it is.
Prove it. Show it. Show why exactly you are the highest paid defense in the NFL. Don't let us down.
But now that there's the potential and hopefully the promise that we will see more blitz packages, more disguises, guys being moved around, Ramsey being moved around anywhere, Watt, Highsmith potentially switching sides, us seeing potential 3 edge rushes like we got when we had Melvin Ingram. Who remembers that for a short stint? We can do that very much with how deep edge is while still keeping a lot of the defensive line intact along with those blitz packages. We can blitz our inside linebackers with their speed and their range and their pass rush upside. I think if we add more blitzes, that's only going to allow a lot more things to happen. Let's run a lot more man. We got all these guys that are so well capable of doing that, and that's going to allow the edge group and the defensive line to get to the quarterback. Because if you run zone as much as we did last year, especially in that Bengals game, bro, the defense got so predictable that
the ball's out of the quarterback's hand in 2 seconds.
Yeah, and the edge group, the defensive line, have no time to do anything. Well, more man is going to allow that front seven to do what they have to do to get to the quarterback, to make plays, to create turnovers.
And you have the guys to do so in the secondary.
Yeah, you got the trust. You got the confidence that these guys can win in press coverage, can win in man coverage, can be so sticky to keep up with some of the best in the league and especially in the entire division.
The players got a ball, no doubt about it. They got to play. They got to make the plays happen. But you got to utilize them to the best of their ability to where they can make the plays happen. That's what's important.
I'm very excited for this defense. There's so much youth. There's so much promise. There's so much that they can do with all the players everywhere. And I mean everywhere. It's so stacked. So we'll see what the defense does, but I'm getting great feelings. But one thing's for sure, the players got to execute, the coaching's got to help them out, and the offense has got to stop going 3 and out. Even if we get a little bit of that better, just a little bit of an improvement from the offense staying on the field, that's going to keep these guys fresh. That's going to keep these guys healthy. Just as a whole, going to make the defense so much stronger. I'm loving the potential and the vibes I'm already feeling from the Steelers defense, man. So, how do you guys feel about the defense?
We'll see what they can do come game day, man.
That's right. So, we'll see you in the next one. Here we go, Steelers.
And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Peace!